Welcome back. This is Joe Volpe, the publisher of Corriere Canadese, here for Corcan Media Group and for NOSA TV, talking to you again once more about the issues of immigration. Today we're going to continue the discussion of dysfunctionalities in the immigration system and the outcomes for Ontario. We talked in the last couple of meetings with immigration lawyer Richard Borax.
Sure.
Thank you for coming once again. We spoke the last two times about children, families, and the court's mandate that what every immigration officer should do is keep in mind the best interests of the child. Today I want to talk about the impact in the construction sector, to be specific.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got an interesting graphic up.
Yep.
Take a look at those numbers here. So we've got 86,000 construction workers. By the way, before I begin with that, where did this chart come from?
This came from an organization called Build Force. Now, Build Force.
What is it?
Build Force is what they call a sector in Ottawa, made up of unions and companies, all the geniuses in the construction industry. They sit down and they advise government what the employment numbers will be over a long period of time.
On the basis of study.
Absolutely, these guys are good, yeah.
But they take a look at what every sector in the construction industry requires.
That's right. Carpenters, plumbers, whatever.
And they say that over the next 10 years, 86,000 are retiring. Is that what that says?
That's right.
So they're going to lose 86,000 current workers over the next 10 years.
That's right.
But the economy is growing.
Yep.
And the demand for those workers is growing.
And that's why.
That's okay. So there's about 23,400 growing Canada-wide, but according to these statistics, they say they're going to need 109,000.
Well, that's the province, Joe. That these are only Ontario stats.
Just Ontario.
Just Ontario, nothing to do with the rest of the country.
So, is the government of Canada recruiting these replacement workers?
Well, let's go back a little bit. You know, those replacement workers are 109,000 over 10 years. That means
it's 11,000 a year.
That's nearly 11,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so the government knows that just to keep up with what they need and replace, they need just under 11,000 a year. And what are they recruiting? To just under 3,000 a year.
Per year.
Per year.
So there's a shortfall of 8,000 per year.
That's right.
So 8,000. Now let me play devil's advocate, Richard.
Yeah.
Where are those 8,000 coming from?
Well, they're coming in to the airport as visitors and just staying here illegally. If they're coming from visa-free countries like Portugal and in Europe, Italy and Poland, whatever, or else they're coming in as phony students from Brazil, India, and other countries. Basically, they're coming in as scamming.
You use the word illegal. I have a personal aversion to the word illegal. So can we refer to them as irregular or undocumented workers?
This gets right to the crux of the issue. In Ontario, you're absolutely right. 50% you're right and 50% you're wrong.
I like to think I'm 100% right, but why am I 50% wrong?
You were in Ottawa too long, so you think you're always right. But the reality is this: under Ontario law, there is no such thing as an illegal worker.
Well, why do you say that?
Well,
because I take a look at immigration law and it says that every person commits.
That's the dysfunction. That's the dysfunction. Under federal government law, under the Immigration Act, if you don't have a work permit and you're working, you're illegal. That's black and white.
No, you're not illegal. You are here illegally.
Well, you are.
You haven't respected the procedures.
Okay. That's a nice social worker attitude to life. But the fact is, you're working here illegally and you're here illegally. Keep it simple.
Well, as I read this, that every person commits an offense who employs a foreign national.
Yep.
Okay. So if I am that foreign national and I come to work for a builder, say for the sake of argument, and he hires me, he's liable.
Absolutely.
What's the fee?
The penalty?
Yeah, the penalty.
$50,000 max, $50,000 max, plus a couple of years in jail.
For every offense?
For every offense.
I thought I just heard you tell me that there are 8,000 such offenders every year.
Well, no, but that does not include the 60,000 we already have.
Well, that's what I said. So if
It's 60,000 that we have as a base, and it's 8,000 new guys every year coming in.
this is according to Build Force,
That's right.
but they don't call them illegal workers.
Well, and the employers are absolutely right in Ontario, because under Ontario labor law, because under the Constitution, labor belongs to the province. It's a provincial responsibility. And under the provincial responsibility, we have how many acts? We've got the list.
Well, there's the
it's
Employment
listed here.
Standards Act, the Workers' Compensation Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Workplace Safety and Insurance Act, the Labor Relations Act, Pay Equity Act, Human Rights Code, Ontario Business Law allowing foreign, etc. So
And not one of those laws, Joe,
is being broken.
is being broken. There's no concept in those laws of illegal work. In Ontario, there is no concept, spirit or letter of the law, that refers to an illegal worker. There is no such thing in Ontario as an illegal worker
Under Ontario law.
under Ontario
But
law.
you just used the word under immigration law, that
That's
it's
right.
not here according to the usual procedures, approvals, etc., that they are illegal.
And that's right. And so the simple question is, well, which law takes precedence, Ottawa or Queen's Park?
If you're in Ontario, which one do you enforce?
There's no such thing as neither law has precedence over the other.
Well, CBSA has precedence over everything else, doesn't
They
it?
think they do. God bless their little souls. They do not.
But they're obliged to go out and ferret out all those undocumented workers.
They, if they want to, they can do it, and they have the right to go and ferret them out under federal law. Absolutely. The next question is, do they do that?
Well, apparently not, because
Forget apparently. They don't. There's a conscious policy call. There's a conscious policy call that Ottawa will not enforce its own laws in Ontario.
well, it's not a conscious policy call. You may recall a few years ago, and the Corriere Canadese was part of the outrage, where immigration officials were stopping people at the Galleria Mall in downtown Toronto,
Yeah.
and at the subway stations on Ossington and Dufferin along the Bloor line, and fishing people out of lineup to incarcerate them.
And
Essentially.
that wasn't even a job site. Let's talk about the job sites. A couple of years ago, Steve Del Duca, when he was minister, I believe, of
Transport, yeah.
of transport, CBSA came in. They brought in some outside officers, and they were up in Vaughan. And one day they would stop the white construction trucks, and next they would stop the black construction trucks and bring out all the illegal workers. And construction was grinding to a halt in the GTA. And Steve Del Duca, as a minister of the Crown in Ontario, forbade his police and
The
the OPP and his enforcement officers to cooperate, let alone
With the federal
enforce
officials.
with the federal officials. Now, let me ask you a question. If a local, regional, provincial politician who's sworn to uphold the law refuses to cooperate with the central authority, if this was Upper Volta or Burkina Faso, what would we call it?
Well, we were in Ontario, and so the minister of Ontario is sworn to uphold Ontario law, and I'm sure that you're a lawyer. Everybody narrows down to what they're doing. They're saying I'm obeying the law, and I'm taking a look at the best interests of Ontario. Take a look at some of the best interests of Ontario.
Money.
Every one of these undocumented workers,
Yep.
the ones that are according to immigration law are
Yep.
illegal, brings in about $83,000 in family income on a yearly basis.
Yep.
Now, I don't have to do much by way of math. You can see it right there. That's about $35,000 in taxes all the way down the line,
Yeah.
whether it's federal, provincial, municipal. And they pay that. Why would Ontario have any interest in eliminating that element of an
When you
income
say
stream?
they pay that, what do you mean?
Well, I'm going to ask you. I mean, they go on a job site, they get paid. All those.
They're
all
not paying taxes, Joe.
Hold on a moment. We talked about all of these laws right here. Somebody is making
That
deductions
is
at source.
what they do is the vast majority of employers and the foreign workers are taking advantage once again of another Ontario law, registering themselves as sole proprietorship small businesses.
Okay, but they don't all do that. The ones that aren't sole proprietors.
I would, off the top of my, even the guys who work for large employers. Now, Ottawa, in May of last year, Ottawa demanded that the large employers deduct income tax, and some do.
Okay.
But even with that, it's safe to say that the federal government is not collecting over $2 billion a year in income tax from the Ontario construction sector.
So because what you're doing is you're adding the 60,000 that were already there,
That's
plus
right.
the 8,000 every year that
Yep.
are cumulative. So you're looking at about an additional, well, let's 60, then 68, then 76, then etc. And these people are not paying taxes?
Very few pay taxes. Very, very few. Between two.
Well, what's the alternative? Well, tell me, because we want to explore that.
Yeah.
If the alternative is to make these people pay taxes, then what?
Well, what do you mean alternative? It's such a simple situation. All the governments have to do is acknowledge that these people exist. Now, Ontario acknowledges they exist because they're legal in Ontario. The problem is that Ottawa is an Alice in Wonderland, and they refuse to acknowledge the existence of these people.
Okay, so we've acknowledged that they exist. We have a third party build force that says they exist. We've taken a look at some of the numbers,
Yeah.
both in terms of total numbers of families, and we've taken a look at some of the dollar amounts. Now, there's got to be a solution to this. And you say, first of all, it's to recognize.
You cannot have a solution until you acknowledge there's a problem.
Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two, what do? Go to a general amnesty for everybody?
A general amnesty would be a complete, total disaster for many reasons. You're in Ottawa, you know that. The main
It was never my preferred route.
The main reason it would be a disaster is because all of the evidence to date shows that those folks who take advantage of a general amnesty are not committed to staying in this country. It's called the retention factor.
Okay, so we've talked about retention rate in the past, that the retention rate of immigrants coming in, according
Sure.
to the process, is only about 55% anyway.
Yeah.
So the solution's got to be a little bit different. Now,
The solution is within the law. The solution exists. One of the great myths in Ottawa is that they have to create some new laws in order to resolve this mess. The laws as they exist now allow the government to go through each family and each file individually and to assess whether this person will stay in this country and whether there'll be a benefit to this nation and to the industry and to the province. Those laws exist.
so speaking about Alice in Wonderland and lack of reality, anybody who's waiting for an amnesty is probably thinking about something that's not going to happen.
Well, not only are they dreaming, but it's a red flag that they're not serious about staying in this country.
Okay, so can we just stop right there, because I can see that we're being told that we're well out of time.
Okay.
And as usual, our discussions stimulate more and more interest. And by the way, for those of you who want to follow us, you can follow us on YouTube, you can follow us on Facebook, you can follow us on Nossa TV, you can follow us on Corriere.ca, or read the Corriere Canadese. We want to continue this discussion,
Yeah.
and Richard, I would like to invite you to come back on to this.
Sure.
Because as usual, the little nuggets of information come forward.
Yeah, this is more insanity from Ottawa, Joe.
All right, so I'm glad that we've identified who the real culprits are.
Yeah.
And I used to be in Ottawa, so
Well,
I guess
what can I say?
I have. Leopard doesn't change its spots, I guess. But we want to thank you, Richard, for coming and joining us. Thank you for watching, and we invite you for our next session. And once again, on YouTube, our YouTube channel, CorriereCanadese.ca, Nossa TV. Signing off for both, Joe Volpe, publisher of the Corriere Canadese.